Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Well, good morning to you and welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. Today is Monday, January 13th, 2020. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm feeling good this morning. I just feel like saying good morning over and over and over again. I think I got a wonderful night's rest. That's probably what it is. And I know there's a lot of political schadenfreude happening around us, and we'll talk about all that. But it is another day, and you got to see it. And so it's a good day. It is a good day. It could be a lot worse. It could be a lot worse. We're seated in the seat of empire, so we are nice and safe, right? We don't have bombs dropping around us, our own bombs. We don't have American drones hovering over us and issuing out death at the whim of a president. So, I mean, it's a good day. All things considered, you know, we have the abundance of capitalism here in this country, and so we're able to eat as much as we want. I mean, and listen, I'm quite serious about it. Like, I have to put it into context. There's quite a few people around the world, and by a few, I mean billions, who aren't as lucky as we are to be seated in empire. And so we have, it's a good morning for us, right? I know I just kind of stole the joy. I literally just stole the joy away from our morning. But that's what happens when you're a leftist and you think about things being good and, you know, you have a moment of peace. You're like, man, this is a good morning. And then you think about, well, damn, we just dropped the drone. Or so we just dropped a bomb somewhere. It's kind of hard to have a good morning, a good day when you know what America is doing across the globe. But I'll take them where I can get them, how I can get them. It's a good morning. All right. Let's get to the political ridiculousness of the weekend. Take a listen to this clip of Elizabeth Warren.
I was disappointed to hear that Bernie is sending his volunteers out to trash me. Bernie knows me and has known me for a long time. He knows who I am, where I come from, what I have worked on and fought for, and the coalition and grassroots movement we're trying to build.
Okay, sorry about the background noise. I did my best to reduce it, but essentially Elizabeth Warren is saying she's disappointed with Bernie Sanders for sending his volunteers out to trash her. Okay, this is according to, she's referencing rather a report from Politico. Reporter Alex Thompson said this on Twitter, quote, "Scoop, Bernie stealthily goes negative on Warren with a volunteer script to tell Warren-leaning voters that she only appeals to the affluent, highly educated, and she's bringing no new bases into the Democratic Party." And this is a copy of the script that he got and reported on. If they are leaning towards Warren, they are supposed to say this when they're going knocking door to door or speaking on the phone. If they are leaning towards Warren, quote, "I like Elizabeth Warren," optional. "In fact, she's my second choice. But here's my concern about her. The people who support her are highly educated, more affluent people who are going to show up and vote Democratic no matter what. She's bringing no new bases into the Democratic Party. We need to turn out disaffected working class voters if we're going to defeat Donald Trump." Now, this is according to a script that was obtained by Politico and reported on, and this is what Elizabeth Warren is responding to. There's just one problem with this. Well, actually, let me finish the story before I get to the problem with it. The Elizabeth Warren campaign then sent out an email. Like I said, this is the political schadenfreude. They sent out an email raising money on this exact accusation, right? This is the email that Warren sent out last night. She said, quote, "Last night we got some disappointing news. Bernie Sanders' campaign is instructing volunteers to dismiss our broad-based, inclusive campaign by saying the people who support Elizabeth are highly educated, more affluent people. When I heard that description, I didn't recognize it. That doesn't describe me." Come on, Liz. "Or many of the passionate volunteers and organizers I know. This type of attack isn't about disagreeing on issues. It's about dismissing the potency of our grassroots movement. Let's be clear, as a party and as a country, we can't afford to repeat the factionalism of 2016. This is her reverse attack. To win in November, we need a nominee who can unite a broad coalition of Democrats who will excite every part of the base of the Democratic Party and inspires more people to join the fight. And then they proceeded to raise money off of the accusation against Bernie Sanders. Okay. One final thing that I want to juxtapose to this conversation is a Politico report from July of 2019. And it essentially says this, quote, in poll after poll, Sanders appeals to lower income and less educated people, men and younger people who vote less frequently, while Warren's camp consists of people with postgraduate degrees, women, and seniors who follow politics closely. That was Politico back in July. Now, here's a couple of pieces of information. So far to date, we in this conversation, rather, it hasn't been, I guess it's only been 2 days this conversation has been going on. This has been thoroughly denied by the volunteers who go out. Not that it's not true that this script wasn't released, but that this script did not come from Bernie Sanders. This script did not come from any senior level officials. This script came from another volunteer who, on their own accord, put this together and put it in their group Slack. And this is where Politico got it from. That should just let you know that, okay, folks, listen, in your Slack, there's going to always be people there to sabotage you. But I digress. Now, here's the thing. You're either going to be responsible for everything that happens in your campaign or nothing that happens in your campaign. So ultimately, I get the accusation. I get them laying this at the feet of Bernie Sanders. I totally get it because I would do the same thing. I'm going to do the same thing against everybody we're opposing, against Joe Biden. See, I'm careful not to say Elizabeth Warren there. Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg. I mean, if the lowest tier individual does something, we lay it at the feet of the candidate. That's just how politics goes. I'm not upset about that. But it is a difference when the campaign actively worked against this, right? Where people inside of the Slack, the volunteer Slack, said actively that this is not what we're going to do. This is not how we're going to approach it. We are not going to go negative. And put a fine point there, how we are defining negative. Okay. So I get that they're laying this at the feet of Bernie Sanders. Cool. That's how we do politics. Fine. What I don't get is Politico. Actually, I do get it, but I'm going to play stupid for a second. Politico not going one step further and reporting on the information of all of the volunteer coordinators who have tried to, who actively rejected this type of language, and that this came from an individual volunteer. Now, it's one thing for the political campaign to say, hey, look what Bernie Sanders did. But in terms of journalistic integrity, which we should expect, even though it's non-existent, you would expect that they would report on that. Now, granted, even if Politico reported on that, Warren's campaign was still going to do what they're going to do, what they did, which is fundraise off of it, which is quite funny, right? Because in less time, Bernie Sanders' campaign raised more money. This is the this is the funny world of politics. Bernie Sanders' team raised more money off of Elizabeth Warren trying to raise money off of this erroneous report from Politico. So it's essentially, Elizabeth Warren tried to raise money off of this report from Politico that is not full of journalistic integrity, right? Which is an incomplete report, which left out considerable information. Elizabeth Warren's team tried to raise money off of it. And Bernie Sanders' team said, OK, fine. We're going to raise money off of you, trying to raise money off of us, off of a erroneous report. And Bernie Sanders raised more. I'm just reporting the news, folks. I have a horse in this race. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't have a horse in this race. I have a horse in this race. And, I haven't just outright said it, but you already know. I don't know why I'm not just outright saying it or haven't outright put an endorsement. No, actually, I do know. Just saying this now. I'm sorry. I'm thinking out loud here. I have a very good reason why I am not just outright saying I am voting for blah, 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 blah. And it's a personal one. I'm just going to keep it, but you know who I'm voting for. So I do have a horse in this race, but I have to look at this from all angles, right? Shame on Politico and actually the reporter follows me. So I'm going to drop him a message, and say like, what the hell, man? What the hell? Because we should not expect politicians and political campaigns, because here's the deal. Listen, when you're running a campaign and you need to raise money, you're going to take every opportunity that you certainly can take to raise money. And this is, if it wasn't Bernie Sanders and if it wasn't Elizabeth Warren, it was just some two campaigns that whatever, just not Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, I would have advised them to do the same thing as a political operative. I would have, as a political consultant in the trenches. I'm like, yes, raise money off of this. Let's go. As a journalist, as a person who does political journalism and commentary, come on. We need the full story, and we need journalistic integrity right now more than we need anything else. Politicians and political operatives and political consultants are going to do what they're going to do, which is why I'm not upset about the move. But I think one good turn deserves another, and that's why Bernie Sanders raised more money last night off of this than Elizabeth Warren did. You know what I mean? You got to be careful about how you approach things. Now, I mean, there's so many. And again, I haven't even gotten to the substance of this, right? The substance of this is the height of irony. Are we competing over who has the biggest crowd of least educated voters? Like, I mean, are we celebrating? I mean, it's going to have to be one or the other here, right? Because this is essentially setting up a conversation about non-college educated working class white people. Basically, this is what the conversation is about, right? And on any other given day, I was going to try to say this for the next segment, but I guess I can nail it before the music comes in for Patrons Party. On any other given day, you're going to see all of my friends who I love dearly over there at Camp Warren. You're going to see them talking about how this campaign shouldn't be about the white working class. It needs to be more inclusive. Well, this particular narrative is specifically about non-college educated working class, and they just truncated the last part, white people. So tell me, Team Warren, I love y'all. Y'all my peoples, and we're going to ride together as soon as this primary is over, right? But tell me, what's it going to be? Who is it that you really want? I mean, because the truth of the matter is you guys do have a very inclusive coalition over there. It just doesn't have as many. Oh, there's my music. Saved by the Bell. We'll talk about it in the next segment.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Well, all right. Look at this. Good morning to all of our newest patrons and our patrons who have increased their pledges. While I'm recording, I just got a message saying that Anna Fox increased her pledge by $1. Thank you, Anna. That is exactly what we wanted everyone to do. Special shout out to Gary Benny, who was a new patron. Thank you for coming on board and coming on board so strongly. Thank you so much. Simon, thank you. Thank you for becoming a patron. Every single dollar counts. I don't take anything for granted. And last but not least, thank you to Melissa Nyarko. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I'm quite sure I pronounced it wrong. But thank you for increasing your pledge by $1. That's what I've been asking everyone to do. If everyone who is a patron just increases their pledge by $1, that will help me cover the equipment that I just purchased in order to do a live stream. So that's coming this week. I've just got to set up my little home office and fix my lights again. So, I've been extremely busy with the project. I'm going to introduce someone to you guys pretty soon. But right now, I've just been trying to keep all the pieces together. We're getting ready for the live stream again. And the podcast will continue. The podcast in this format will not stop. So I'm going to be doing double duty. I will be doing the podcast as well as a live stream because I just like the experience that we create here on the podcast. Now, let's get back to what I was talking about with Elizabeth Warren. Somebody keeps I have a couple of friends who actually tell me that I'm pronouncing Elizabeth wrong. It should be Elizabeth, but it's literally spelled Beth. So whatever. Okay. Useless point of information there. So to all of my friends over there on Team Warren, you guys know I rock with you. You know I love you. You know I'm not going to attack you. But we do have to talk about this. The subtext of the conversation really is about competing for a more inclusive campaign that can beat Donald Trump. And in that inclusive campaign, it's going to have to be diverse. It is going to have to have a strong representation, literally the strongest representation from the black community, because without a Democratic nominee winning about 90% of the black vote that turns out, and the black vote turning out at about 60%, they don't win the White House. Right. So it has to be inclusive of black people, specifically black women, because right now they are the super voters of the of the Democratic Party. I might as well say, of the black party. Right. They are the super voters who are going to show up in the primaries, the special elections, as well as all of the conventions. And I mean, the black women are the super voters and black voters are the linchpin for the Democratic Party. So your coalition absolutely must have black women, black men, people of color, Hispanic, Latino, Latinx. You have to have all of those people. But this particular conversation is about the white working class, uneducated or non-college educated is the correct way of saying it, voters. Now, the reason I'm going through all of this is because, like I said up before, one of the attacks against Bernie Sanders has been the fact that he appeals to the white working class. Matter of fact, I actually absolutely get tired of Bernie Sanders speaking in white working class. It's a language all by itself. He speaks in white working class, and he has to actively work to learn another language of speaking to people of color, specifically speaking to black people. And when he speaks to black people, not speaking to them in a context that can be misconstrued or very directly insulting. Right? Remember 2016, black people in the ghettos, no, he didn't say projects. He said the ghettos. Now, okay, right, we're setting this up, and I'm giving you intertwined in this is some of the reason why I'm just not coming out and saying, hey, I'm supporting blah, 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 blah. You know, it's just a personal reason to me. I have no one else to vote for in this election. This is the person, but I just have a personal, I do have this thing against Bernie Sanders that I've talked about ad nauseum. And I'm just at the point where I'm just kind of reluctantly, but very actively supporting. Okay. Now back to the point. I'm really silly this morning. I don't know what the hell is wrong with me, but back to the point. One of the attacks against Bernie Sanders has been the fact that he makes such an appeal and is so appealing to this particular demographic that now everyone is acting like, oh, Elizabeth Warren isn't for the elite white people. She's for the poor white non-college educated people too. You can't really have it both ways, everybody. Don't get me wrong. Elizabeth Warren can appeal to that group ad nauseum, right? As a whole, not ad nauseum. What the hell? She can be appealing to that group. And in fact, I think they have a reason to have her as a very close second. But you can't pinpoint. You can. I get the game. You guys are playing the game well, but game recognizes game. And my job is to call it out. What you cannot do, and what you're not going to get away with, all of my friends over there who I love dearly, is in one breath attack Bernie Sanders for being appealing to white working class non-college educated voters and then turn around and say, whoa, no, wait a minute, we get them too. The hypocrisy there is not too much for me to bear. I get it. I totally get it, but we got to call it out for what it is, right? So if you want your campaign to be inclusive of non-college educated working class white voters, then fine. That's your prerogative. But there is a candidate who is appealing to them even more so. And the numbers simply bear it out that Elizabeth Warren appeals more to highly educated white liberals. And that's okay. Be proud of who you are. That's what your camp is made up of primarily. The data bears it out. It is what it is. Now, all of this is going on. We got two things happening. You got Joe Biden, who has a firewall in South Carolina simply because he hung out with a black man for 8 years. And so he gets extra credit, even though his roots are connected with Strom Thurmond, who is a segregationist, right? And his roots go back to talking hard about crime. All the while they've got us fighting. You got Pete Buttigieg, who's in there, who's right there next to Elizabeth Warren in Iowa, who's just now everybody's looking at the two people who really have the most progressive, Bernie Sanders is the most progressive campaign. Elizabeth Warren is somewhere close to second, and nobody else, period. End of conversation. I think we can all agree there that there is literally nobody else outside of Warren and Sanders who have a progressive campaign of any caliber. And yet now we are all fighting one another. And then my friend, well, no, I'm not going to call him. I'll actually just text him and talk to him. I don't feel like this is a call. I don't feel like this is an occasion for us to have an all-out war with the Warren campaign. I think it's an occasion for us to call it what it is, call it out, call out the hypocrisy, call out the data, tell the truth, and expect for them no longer to act on bad faith articles. Period. And then turn our political rhetorical guns on the two camps that are in the close third. Actually, I'm not close third. I mean, South Carolina, Joe Biden is still leading. Pete Buttigieg is trying to get in there in Iowa. We need to continue to pound the two people who are literally the biggest threats to any type of progress whatsoever. That's my take. Now, you can do what you want to do because you're going to do what you're going to do, but you came to listen to my take. That's my take. I'm done with it. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. So Team Joe Biden is pushing back as hard as they possibly can because Bernie Sanders has called him out on his record. Here's the funny thing about this before I play this clip from Bernie. It's amazing. I absolutely love the fact that in order for, what you consider to be an attack, what they consider to be an attack is simply someone telling the truth versus what their attacks have to be, which is distortions of the truth. In other words, all we have to do is tell the truth on them and they feel attacked. And then for them to attack us, they have to lie. I can't say things very simply, can I? They're always convoluted. Let me see if I can say this plainly. Keep lying about us and we'll keep telling the truth about your candidate.
Joe Biden voted and helped lead the effort for the war in Iraq, the most dangerous foreign policy blunder in the modern history of this country. Joe Biden voted for the disastrous trade agreements like NAFTA and permanent normal trade relations with China, which cost us millions of jobs. You think that's going to play well in Michigan or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania? Joe Biden has been on the floor of the Senate talking about the need to cut Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid. Joe Biden pushed a bankruptcy bill, which has caused enormous financial problems for working families. So if we're going to beat Trump, we need turnout. And to get turnout, you need energy and excitement. And I just don't think that kind of record is going to bring forth the energy that we need to defeat Trump.
Yes. I told y'all, I don't know. It's a good morning. It's the truth. It's the God blanking truth. Period. This is the problem. Joe Biden doesn't excite anyone. One, because he's full of malarkey. Two, because he's well past his prime. And I'm sorry, this is elder abuse at this point. I'm not being ageist. It is what it is. We are all going to have a prime and we're all going to get past our prime. It's going to happen. And I hope I live long enough to get past my prime like Joe Biden is. He has lived a long, full life, but he is just definitely not up to speed in terms of going head to head against Donald Trump, who for whatever reason in his twilight is just, I guess maybe hatred and bigotry make you extremely sharp, right? It's either hatred or bigotry on Donald Trump's side or conviction on Bernie Sanders' side. Bernie Sanders probably has no problem remembering what he's fighting for because he's been saying the same damn thing for the last 30, 40, 50 years, right? It's pretty easy to be consistent when all you've done all your life is fought for the working class. But Joe Biden does not have the wherewithal to actually get out there and fight against Donald Trump. That's number one. Number two, Joe Biden's record sucks. And while that should absolutely mean something to us, it absolutely should be the substantive reason for which we are not going to support Joe Biden. More importantly, is that this is going to be the political cudgel that Donald Trump is going to use relentlessly against Joe Biden. I mean, I can see it now. I can see it now. What Donald Trump is going to do to Joe Biden based on his record and based on the fact that he is not nimble enough to be in this competition anymore. What he's going to do politically it's only going to be able to be compared to what Negan did to Glenn. I'm sorry. It is going to be a political bloodbath because Donald Trump's audience has zero. Listen to me clearly. Donald Trump's audience has zero regard for hypocrisy. And so the very things that Donald Trump may be guilty of, they have no problem whatsoever for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is going to be able to call Joe Biden a racist based on his record. And what is Joe Biden going to do? He's not going to be intellectually nimble. I'm sorry. You guys, y'all are playing around with this. If you are out here supporting Joe Biden, you are literally handing this country to Donald Trump for another 4 years because those debates are going to matter and Joe Biden is not going to survive those debates. He is not. Because of his record and because he's past his prime. Call it for what it is. Call it for it. Call me ageist all you want. But you have to be able to get and listen, I don't know. Like I said, it's probably the pure evil and hatred that's running through the veins of Donald Trump that energizes his brain and it's going to get one last hoorah out of him. This is going to be Donald Trump's last hoorah for hatred, but it's there. And he's got the wit, he's got the quickness, and he's got no regard for shamelessness. He has zero shamelessness, no regard for hypocrisy. He embraces the hypocrisy. And Joe Biden he does not have what it takes, period. And his record is a liability. It's a liability that Donald Trump is going to be able to tap dance on. He's going to be dancing a jig all over Joe Biden. Donald Trump is going to be just taking his time, whistling as he twirls Lucille, picking which issue he wants to attack on. He's going to be like, any, many, miny, mo, of all these issues, which one am I going to use to attack Joe? And then he's going to strike. And he's going to hit. And he's going to hit him over and over and over again based on his vote for the war in Iraq. And he's going to bash Joe Biden. You think? So I saw somebody who said Bernie Sanders is taking a scorched earth approach to Joe Biden. You think this is scorched earth? Oh my God. Wait till Donald Trump bashes him in a debate over and over and over again based on his vote for the Iraq war, based on his vote for NAFTA, based on his 94 crime legislation, based on his racist rhetoric. You think what you saw Negan do to Glenn was brutal? Wait until we're on the national stage and Donald Trump gets to call Joe Biden a racist. We are all going to be stunned. We're all going to be shocked. We're all going to be, just shaken, shooketh. Because Donald Trump has zero regard for the hypocrisy of calling Joe Biden a racist when he, in fact, himself is the white supremacist in chief. His supporters will have zero regard for it. And Joe Biden is just going to be sitting there stunned like Glenn, like, I'll find you, Maggie. I'll find you, Maggie. I don't know what's wrong with me this morning, but I need you to see it. And I like Joe. No, let me rephrase that. I like Joe Biden more than I like Pete Buttigieg because at least Joe Biden is honest with his dishonesty. Like he's clear about what I don't want to do for you, America. I don't want to do any of that for you. I just want to get rid of Donald Trump. Pete Buttigieg is a little more Machiavellian. He's hiding. He's trying to present himself as something that he's not. But let me tell you something. When it comes down to that debate, those 3 painful debates that we're going to have to watch, I would much rather see Pete Buttigieg go up against Donald Trump. Much rather see that because the political bashing that Donald Trump has in wait for Joe Biden at those debates is going to be painful to watch. Mark my words. And I hope you never get to, I hope that I never get to say I told you so. Or you can go with someone who has the conviction of 50 years of saying the same thing over and over again. I don't know the mental faculties of Bernie Sanders. All I know is that he just has to repeat the same thing he's been saying for 50 years, and it resonates with a whole hell of a lot of people, and it will be able to go head to head with Donald Trump. Those are the facts. You can dismiss it as much as you please, but you know I'm right.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.